Evening. Welcome to Frontline Access.
We're back, baby.
That intro always gives me a kick, with that little thumbs up that you give me.
Doesn't it make you feel good?
It makes me feel great. Russ, before we begin, I think we just have to start by saying that on behalf of both of us, our hearts go out to all the Israelis after the recent rocket attacks from Hamas. Tonight's interview is a pre-record, but just a couple days after we spoke with Dalit and Ran, they were in bomb shelters, so I couldn't help but think about them. And, our hearts go out to all our family and friends in Israel, and we're always thinking about you guys. And I know you feel the same way.
I do. And it's tragic. But you know what? We finally have some peace again. And, those groups are going to do what they have to do to work on creating some stability back there. So we think about you guys every day.
Yeah. Hopefully the peace, the ceasefire lasts and, better times. And we're excited to at least Maccabi Canada go back to Israel next summer for the Maccabi Games. I'm Israel Chai.
And win gold, baby.
Win gold. But you know what? I know tonight I'm just talking to you, Russ, because it's game 4 of Habs versus Leaf. Literally, no one is watching this tonight.
No, nobody is.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We have a great guest coming up, but it's playoffs. First time in 42 years these teams have met. What do you think of the series so far?
Listen, let's look at last night, for example. All right.
Let's not.
Montreal comes out, they're hitting hard. The shots on goal are equal, 29 shots on goal each team. They're out there, they're playing good hockey. But here's the thing. Leafs had the edge. The Leafs and the Canadians, they're 0 for on the power play. 0 for 3 on the Canadian side, 0 for 4 on the Leafs side. There is so many more opportunities to see a high-scoring game like we saw in game number 2. So the question is, what's going to happen tonight? And if I have any bets on anything, Smedge, you Canadians are going down the drain.
The Habs are going to win tonight. They're going to win 3-1. Carey Price is going to play a great game. Cole Caulfield, he's going to get at least 1 goal tonight. He was on fire last night. When they put him on the ice, they gave him that ice time in the third period. He played well. This guy is a stud. Very happy to see him play. Okay. And give me the update on John Tavares. What's going on with him? I mean, that was a terrible injury in game 1. Our hearts went out to him. So what's the news? What's the latest? Is he going to come back?
Well, listen, being a guy who's played contact sport and seen that happen in front of my face, I know hockey, those helmets are pieces of plastic. They're shells. There's not as much going on there. And he literally did get, a knee to the head, and that's very scary to see. But the good part is he's communicating. He has no spinal cord injuries. There's a lot of pieces that are really great here where he will make a full recovery. Great example, Sidney Crosby. It just takes time to get past those symptoms. And if I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan that's hopeful, you hope he's back in the 3rd round if you get that far. But if I'm not hopeful, I think he's out indefinitely. And as somebody who probably doesn't know he had a concussion, or at least remember, I think that for John Tavares' health, that he is out indefinitely for the rest of the season. And I think the really cool thing is, I'm sure you watched on all the highlights, Smash, Kyle Dubas's care for his players. You saw that guy's light up, and he's on the phone. He's calling. He's also calling his wife and reassuring her. He's calling the medical staff. He's making sure that his guy is taken care of.
This guy is one of the best. That. And players want to play for someone like that.
Yes, and he's young. And Kyle, this is the year for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Unfortunately, to you, your Habs are going down. But I'm really excited.
I don't think it's the year for the Leafs, but you know what? I think they have a great, young, exciting team. If they do beat the Habs in 6 or 7 games, so be it. It might happen just because they're too talented. They're overwhelming. I mean, the offensive punch, the Maccabi Games alumnus, Zach Hyman. I mean, this team's got it all. They'll perhaps beat the Habs, but perhaps they'll lose to Tampa down the line. But you know what? It's been a great series so far, and I expect it to at least go 6 or 7.
I just want to see the Leafs play more aggressive hockey. I want to see them really get in there and just bring it with the hitting. Montreal has been playing more physical, and so I think we need to get back to that. Now, another team that needs to get back into the winning ways is the Toronto Blue Jays. They went to extras last night. They lose against the Rays. What was it, 14-8? We need some more consistency than a 500 team. There's a lot of injuries.
You know what? They got swept by the Rays because the Rays have won 11 in a row, which is fantastic for me. But what I did love, is that you're going to a quasi home game for Toronto, playing in Dunedin, Florida, when all you have are Rays fans in the stands. For me, that's the future of baseball down in Florida. You have an open air stadium in Tampa. Looked like a beautiful day. I wish I could have been there.
Well, I can tell you what, they're going to have to get out of there soon because it's hot. And they're going to be playing that baseball back in Buffalo soon enough. And I'm sure the Jays are going to have some fans in Buffalo that are excited.
Yeah, probably.
Those Buffalo Bison fans. And
Vladdy did hit 2 home runs yesterday, right?
And there's real talk about him being the AL MVP right now. He is blasting balls. He's starting to hit that next level expectation that, he's doing it like his daddy, he's doing it like his daddy. And that's exciting.
Growing up an Expos fan, seeing Vladdy play 25, 30 times a year was an absolute delight. Every time you go to the games just to see him hit balls like seemingly in the dirt, above his head, out of the park. It was fantastic, growing up watching Vladimir Guerrero. So I'm happy for him, happy for success. But speaking of hitting balls, lefty took it home on the weekend. Oldest man to win a major.
Wow.
What do we think about that?
You know what? I love it. I just think you can be an ageless wonder, or you can just be somebody who just gets old and has a bad back.
What's the better story, him winning at 50 or Tiger Woods winning the Masters a couple years back?
You know what? I'm a big believer in comeback stories. Tiger had some ups and downs, as we all know, and he lost his secret stuff, whatever that may have been. But to come back from after all that noise, and you understand, when we're talking about psychology, how we do things, and all of this noise and everything happening and what's going on, he could let laser focus and perform at the highest level on one of the biggest stages. That is incredible. I go Tiger Woods.
Fair enough. You know what? I still think I give Tiger Woods the edge, but Phil Mickelson at 50 years old, that's old. That's old to be competing with these guys. A Bryson DeChambeau hits the ball a mile. For people counting out, they're talking about giving him a special exemption to play in these majors. But for him to win, I think it's fantastic. And I think he's going to go back-to-back, complete the career Grand Slam at Torrey Pines next month.
So you're saying that Phil Mickelson's going to play a little bit of Drizzy Drake? We're going back-to-back. Did you see his tweet? Did you see his tweet, actually? He tweeted out about, he works hard every day, even when people said he can't do it. And I think it's just things like that make him one of the most respectable golfers, because he's an ordinary guy. One thing about golfers is they may get paid well, but they're some of the most down-to-earth people. It's really athletes in particular, and it's really interesting. So, man, I'm just saying, sports is crazy right now. Think about a year ago, or when we were going through that first round of the pandemic, we didn't have anything to talk about. Now there's these new storylines, there's these new comeback stories, and I think that we're now getting back to where we want to be, where we're going to get back to Israel for Maccabi games, and we're going to win.
With fans in the stands.
With fans in the stands.
And everyone watching. It means you, me, and our producer Jared in the background. You're all invited.
Be there, Jared. Show them your glasses.
But, speaking of Israel, tonight our 2 guests are the leading doctors in their field. So we have Dr. Ran Thein, the head of Sports Orthopedics at Sheba Hospital. He's also the team physician for Hapoel Tel Aviv. Also, Dr. Thein worked for the Jets and the Islanders when he was doing his fellowship in New York City. And joining him and us is Dr. Dalit Lev Arey-Margalit. She is the head of sports and exercise studies at the Academic College of Tel Aviv-Jaffa. As I mentioned before, we pre-recorded this a couple of weeks ago, and it was just a fantastic conversation. We touched on some issues that I didn't even know exist. I did not know, and you'll listen to this, exercise addiction is a thing. We know about playing through playing. We know about, what the struggles athletes go through, but they really opened up our eyes to a whole new world and what they deal with on a daily basis.
Balance. It's so interesting. And, through exercise science, through being an orthopedic surgeon and trainer of a professional sports team, and the dealings of coaches and trainers, and when is somebody hurt or when somebody injured, what are those differences? And it's so interesting, especially in team sports. So I really enjoyed the conversation with both of them. It was great to see both of them and the energy that they bring to their jobs and their lives. And that's not something you see every day. And by the way, I sound like a child going through puberty today because I've lost my voice. So I apologize.
Well, you're not going to need it for much longer because we're going to head to the stream in 2 minutes. But before we do, I just want to thank our good friends at the Canadian Friends of Tel Aviv University and the Sylvan Adams Sports Institute for arranging this interview. Both are very wonderful organizations, and Sylvan Adams Sports Institute in Israel is doing some incredible things in exercise science, in research. I can't wait to check it out next summer when I'm in Israel. And of course, the Canadian Friends of Tel Aviv University, they do some great things supporting Tel Aviv University here in Canada. You can reach out to their local chapters in Toronto or Montreal, or wherever you're watching the show from. But without further ado, Jared, please show this wonderful interview. And to all our guests, everyone watching, have a great evening. Please enjoy the show.
That's by Howie Mandel.
Dalit, Ran, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Frontline Access. It's a pleasure to have you guys straight from Israel. So I'll jump in right to it. You both work with athletes. Ran, you work with professional athletes. Dalit, you work with those weekend warriors, amateur athletes. Let's start with you, Dalit. Take us into the mind of one of those athletes. What makes them persevere? What makes them want to, keep going, keep fighting, keep running that extra mile?
Well, that's an interesting question, given that most people prefer not to run that extra mile. I mean, we are talking about 70% of Israel's population that does not work out at all. So if I'm looking at those 30%, I would say it varies. It varies with age, with gender, with where they live in Israel, because people are very different and they have different reasons for working out. If you care to be more specific, I can, maybe give you a better look into their heads.
Well, I mean, Russ just mentioned it in our pre-show when we were talking about an exercise addiction. So describe that to us. Tell us about exercise addiction and how does one develop that and how do they recover from that?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm trying to convince my students for the better of 2 years now that exercise addiction is a terrible thing. But, you ask them, are you addicted to sports or are you addicted to exercise? And they jump, yes, of course we are. Well, exercise addiction is, it's a real problem. It's an addiction, just like any other addiction. Psychologists have previously talked only about chemical addictions. Now we are talking about behavioral addictions. One of them is working out addiction, is exercise addiction, where people use exercise to kind of avoid problems in their lives. I mean, it's a tool to kind of not look in, but look out. And they use it to be able to cope with their everyday problems by working out. The issue starts when working out starts to interrupt with your personal life, with work, with your relationship with other people. And we see that it becomes a real problem. I mean, high percentage of divorces, of separations among people that are addicted to exercise, problems with their personal life, problems with their children, problems at work. So it's a big issue, not addressed nearly as it should be.
When you look at, sorry, Smat, if you look at amateur sport in particular, with these pressures that these youth face every day, the ones who are trying to get to Maccabi and win those gold medals for their respective countries, what are some of the pieces in the way that they're dealing with that you would say from the research that you've done, from that addiction of wanting to be the best and finding that balance of being a young adult or a preteen coming up in that kind of a way?
Yeah, the question of addiction is very different when we are talking about professional athletes versus amateur athletes. With professional athletes, they have a staff of people kind of pushing them to their limits. So knowing where the border crosses it's pretty hard. It's harder with professional athletes. And sometimes only when the damage is done, only when they're severely injured and they have to go and see Ron, we discovered that there is a major problem. Since their life is devoted to sports, it's much harder to find out who is addicted and who's just devoted to their goal, their passion.
And Ron, I'd like to follow up and bring this to you now, because we talked about addiction amongst amateur athletes, but you have professional athletes that will get hurt on the field. But it doesn't matter. They're still going to play. They're still going to finish the game. They're still going to try and come back quickly. That's an addiction in itself, no?
Yeah, actually, it depends, because I'm not sure it's addiction, because this is their job. They earn money. They need it. They cannot, if they go out from the field, someone else will come and take their place. So this is a different issue. Some of them addicted, but most of them are concerning about someone else taking their place. Because if you see, in the American football for sure, the concussion, people are like getting head trauma and try to stay on the field, because they concerned that if they go out for week, 2, a month, someone else will come, take the glory, and they will lose it all. So I think that more addicted people are, I see 50 years old guys or women that go to do the Ironman. They keep running, they have stress fracture, and they keep running on it until they find themselves in the OR. So this is, I think that if you look at addiction, I think addiction is more for the recreational than the professional athletes.
Do you find, Ren, that when you're looking at a professional athlete and it is their career and it is their life, and you're looking at, I twist my ankle, but I don't care. I want to keep going. I want to keep doing it at all costs, and also training at all costs so they can be the best. Have you seen, as in your position, any different things that have happened to these individuals that have kind of set them back in ways that, if they were more, level-headed, could get themselves forward?
Yeah, of course. I see it every day. I see it in every game. Every game I deal with, the coach and the players, and they have injuries that will usually put on the bench every other sports guy, every other man, and they go out and on an ankle sprain, and on even like a few weeks ago, I had a guy that dislocated his shoulder during a soccer, and I did a mistake and put it back. So he went back to the game, the same game, and I didn't care. So you see, this is not sometimes it's not sports, sometimes it's something else. And they for sure, sometimes they hurt themselves for that.
There's a saying, I used to play university Canadian football, so not soccer or football. And our coaches, and in North America in particular, I'm sure a lot of places, they go, oh, if you're not injured, you're hurt. And if you're hurt, you can play. If you're injured, you can't. Have you seen that in the pro level as well? Because it's like, hey, you get a little stinger in your shoulder, you roll an ankle. If you can go get that tape, get back out there. How do you manage that in the pros and in your position?
So it depends. It depends on the player. It depends on the coach, and it depends on the situation. So we have a semifinal of the cup in 2 days. I will tell you that no one is injured now. Everybody can play. Nobody has pain. They are all good. But after maybe two weeks, when the game is not important, we will see. So it's all about the actual situation when you are in, and it depends on the coach. There are some coaches that give you, the benefit of the doubt that you are actually injured, and some don't. Some just tell you, try to do your best and go and do what you need to do. And this is a problem. And I stand there and I try to, take care of the pay of my players. So if I think that something is going to hurt them, let's say concussion, it's a no-no. It doesn't matter. Other life-threatening, injuries, heart problems and etc., I will not let them go out. But if it's an ankle sprain or it's a contusion, so they need to deal with themselves and the coach and decide what to do. I'm only an advisor for that.
Yeah. We have to remember these are people that have put their life on the line. I mean, when the bell rings and they have to go and show whatever they got, it's really hard to stop. And when you're at the moment and you have an adrenaline rush or a serotonin rush, and you don't feel the pain. You're focused at getting and achieving your goals. So I'm not surprised by what Ron is saying.
Dalit, I want to just bring us back to what we were talking before about the addiction, because we have a lot of recreational athletes that watch this show. In fact, 99% of even Maccabi athletes are recreational.
Correct.
So what is an addiction? What does it look like amongst these athletes? Is it 30 minutes a day? Is it an hour a day? Or does it depend?
It depends. I mean, addiction is not defined by the time you spend at the gym or even, how often you go and work out. It's not that at all. Addiction is a matter of being dependent upon something. If you cannot go on with your daily activities without working out, if this is something that keeps running in your head, if you cannot focus because you haven't worked out, then probably you are addicted. I mean, this is an issue of, if it's not nearly an issue of amount of time you spend in the gym. It's just how much do you need it?
So then a follow-up would be, how does one begin to get over that? What are steps someone can take to recover from this?
Interesting question. I think the first step is just acknowledging that you have a problem, and it's a major issue with all addicts, not necessarily people who are addicted to exercise. They need it. So kind of they avoid the question, am I in trouble? Do I need to stop doing that? And once the push comes to shove and you have major injuries or you have your job on the line or your family on the line and you have to deal with it, and you acknowledge that, then there are a couple of things you can do. You can treat it as any other addiction with therapy, with medication. We try to understand what the source of the addiction is. Usually it's a problem. It's a personal problem. It's a psychological problem that they're dealing with using exercise. And we have to overcome that problem in order for them to recover from their addiction.
Wow. You don't think that those athletes that you see, the recreational ones running, outside on a weekend or at the gym every day, you don't ever consider them to be addicted. But, when you put it that way, it's very possible.
Well, when you come to Israel for a visit, I'll take you on a Saturday to Yarkon Park, and you'll see people that are limping and jumping on one leg and so forth. I'll show you some addicted individuals.
Can I come?
You're more than welcome.
It's
really fun.
You can come and run with us.
I'd love to. I think it's so interesting that most people would never think of exercise as an addiction. Like on the background, I hate working out. Although I was a university athlete, I hate working out. But there's a lot of people who are addicted to working out. It's like, when I think about it, I have some friends who all they do is they run, then they go to the gym, then they make some food, and it's rinse and repeat. And then the days that they don't get to work out, they kind of lose their mind a bit. And it's so interesting. Maybe I can ask this Madge, what have you seen throughout this COVID year with gyms potentially being closed in some spaces, and what are the impacts that had on both amateur and professional athletes? If you guys can speak from both your perspectives, that'd be okay.
I'll speak from the perspective of amateur athletes. During the first time that we were closed in Israel, people were not allowed to go out and work out. I think we had a 100-meter run. Correct me if I'm wrong, 100 meters from home, half a kilometer from home. We couldn't go further than that. People were running like crazy in circles. I mean, they were like printing out a map of their home and putting it in the mail so they know how much they can run around their house, so they're not going to go over the 500 meters limit. Some people went out and got caught by the police, like me, and paid a fine for that. But during the second and third waves that we had in Israel, we were allowed to work out, and people went out, and you saw a lot of people walking on the streets, running, biking, and so forth. It was beautiful. I mean, most people worked out during that time.
And then, Rand, from the professional perspective, have you seen any impacts on these players when,
This is a different story, from the professional. They couldn't practice. They stopped playing. The problem was when they came back. So when they came back, they had to do like 2 or 3 games a week. And for us, it's not something that they used to do. And so the injuries get growing and growing, hamstring and the adductors and everything. Beside that, there is a big influence of the COVID itself. So they are young and they got COVID. And now we understand that coming back from being a COVID infected, it's a problem. Some of them, there is now a study that was published in JAMA, which is a important paper. 15% of the athletes has myocarditis, which means it's like inflammation of the heart after COVID. 30% present like a past myocarditis. And I know that there was a football player, I cannot remember his name, he had to retire because of the myocarditis. And we have some soccer players in the national team that were sick, and they had it took them a lot of time to come back from the COVID. The famous one, Eran Zahavi, is playing in Holland now. He had muscle sores, he had pain. Some of them couldn't, had injuries. We don't know anything yet about this COVID, and now we start to get some idea that coming back from this disease is not what we thought about. What we thought it is, and the problem is that all the young people in the beginning had COVID parties because they want to be infected, and after that, now they probably will suffer from stuff that we don't know, and now we have the vaccination, and the vaccine also has some side effects, which we're not aware of it yet. So we don't know what the COVID will bring us in the next year. We are very happy now in Israel because we went back, and today there is the most important game between the two leading teams, and the stadium will be stuck with 30,000 people.
Wow.
And full house, but we don't know what will be in the future. I don't know, and we are all happy because we are Israel. We like to be happy and don't think about the future. But things are, I'm sure that we will see the influence of the COVID in the next few months and years.
Dalit, you wanted to add something?
No, I was just very interested in what Ron was saying. I totally agree with them. From my personal experience, I know people that have recovered from COVID and they are not back to their usual. I mean, it takes time. It takes time, and you never know how this is going to affect you.
So touching on recovery for a bit, we're amateur professional athletes, of course, 2 different types of bodies, 2 different types of mentalities. How do we recover from injuries? What are some best practices that the amateur and the pros can do to either prevent injuries or make sure they recover quicker, heal quicker? We'll start, I guess, with you, Dalit.
Sure. Well, basically, my coach says that if you don't want to get injured, don't don't play sports. I mean, getting injured, I guess, is part of the game. As for recovering, you need to be patient, and this is something that we see with amateur athletes all the time. They get impatient and they start working out way before they should, and they just make their injury worse than it was. Getting professional help, seeing a sports expert, doing some physiotherapy and so forth can definitely help. But time is the best heal.
So what would you tell an athlete who is itching? They're on their couch, they're itching to go out there, even for just a quick jog, not even a full out run, because they haven't gone out in 2 weeks, so a month, because of their knee or their ankle.
Right. It depends on the type of the injury. But if they're itching and they really want to get back into the game, I would suggest maybe trying different kind of sports. Maybe they can swim, or they can bike. Or they can do something else that they haven't done before, and it's not as painful or as dangerous for them. Even yoga can be a substitute for other kind of sports.
And Ron, I'll throw this over to you. You mentioned the semifinals. The hockey playoffs are coming up in Canada, and the basketball playoffs coming up here as well. You have athletes who are going to be rushing back to try and, they want to be with their team. They want to try and contribute 5 minutes a night, 10 minutes a night, even if they're normally, a 40-minute a night player. So, what are some steps that professional athletes take to try and, push themselves back to competition?
We have problem with the athletes that try to, rush back. We try to hold them back. We try to, put a program where they can go back easily and gradually and whatever. But the problem, as I told you before, the problem is with the coaches, with the timetable, timelines and everything. They just go back and they don't care, and they get injured, and then we have a problem because they said, "Oh, okay, you come back too early." But there is a big now, more than in an average year, there is a big conflict. Debate between the medical team and the coach. We are all trying to put them back in the field, but in a reasonable time. The problem is that they try to go back sooner, and we have problem with them. With the recreational people, sometimes you can tell them, okay, go back, go slow, take your time. But with them, they have in 2 days they have the semifinal. They don't care.
I can mention for me a story, like a quick story, and maybe both of you guys can mention. Like, I was playing university football. I was in my second year, and there was a lot of pressure to get on the field, and I pulled my hamstring. And the training staff's like, "Oh, take it one day at a time." And I was like, I came back a week. I'm like, I feel good. I got this. I don't want to lose my roster spot. I want to keep growing. This is an amateur athlete perspective because you're at a point where you want to get there. And I came back a week early, and then on my first practice, I'm jogging, I feel good, then I put a little, extra pop into it, and then I feel that hamstring go again. And then I set myself back. So it's like, what are some strategies, or even as the trainer and as an orthopedic surgeon, what's some strategies you try to help alleviate that with these kind of athletes? And Dalit, if there's any pieces there that you've seen through your research and how we can alleviate that thought process in particular. Yeah, if that's okay.
Ron, do you want to start?
No, it's good. I'm saying, I keep telling it. We don't have much choice because we are dealing with professional guys, and we're dealing with the coaches, and we're dealing with money and the TV and the fame and everything. So we try to do everything by the book. We need 3 weeks until the ankle sprain, or 3 weeks until the hamstring, but they don't want to. They feel better. They go to do some some personal trainers and everything, and they said, okay, I feel fine. And you said, okay, I am the advisor. I will tell you, don't go back. I will tell you, take another week. And then they go back and they get injured again. So that's what I can do. They are grown people. This is their career. They need to understand. So we do what we can, but it's always a problem between the medical team, the trainers, and the coaches and the players. Always a debate between us.
Have you ever had to run up against a coach or an owner and say, I'm putting my foot down, this athlete is not coming back, they cannot play?
Yes, I did it when they had a concussion. After a concussion, we don't have the helmet to take like the football, but I just went to the referee and said he cannot play anymore. I had actually a few years ago, I was probably the first one to do it in Israel, because I came back from the US from my fellowship, and someone had a concussion. He couldn't remember anything. So I went to the referee and said, I went to the other team. He was from the other team, and I was the only medical doctor on the field. So I said, he should go out. And they said, no, he doesn't want to. And I said, he cannot decide if he wants or not, because he had a concussion. And I went to the referee, and I told him, stop the game or take him out. And then there was a letter that went from the soccer, conference. Association, yeah, whatever. And they said that the referee had to take out everyone, that the medical doctor decided he's not capable of playing and everything. No, like in the US. But before that, there was not much in Israel about it.
So since we're running short on time here, I'll end this with just a question about fast forward our athletes 25 years. So Dalit, let's take it from the recreational standpoint. I'm 35 years old. I'm running 15 miles a week. What should people, how do I deal with this, manage myself, my mentality moving forward, so I'm not dealing with these injuries when I'm 65, 70 years old?
Well, let's start from the end. Working out is the best thing that you can do for yourself. It's much better than any other medication that any doctor can prescribe. So I would advise you not to stop working out, but taking it moderately. I mean, don't push yourself to the limit, because one, you can get injured. Two, you can get burned out. I mean, we do not like to suffer. And if working out turns into an hour of suffering, then we'll stop doing it. We should enjoy working out. So do whatever you love doing, do it in moderation, do it with friends, with family, because it bonds people together, and be happy.
How about yourself, Ran? If you look at the professional side of things, how can some professional athletes prolong their career?
So it's actually the same. So you need to take care of yourself. If you have injury, you need to take care of it. You need to rehab. You need to, make sure that you fully recover from injuries. You need to make sure that you don't go back too early. But it's the same as recreational. Actually, the professional has better medical support. They can go to do MRI whenever they want. And actually, I will tell the recreational athletes to go and do the check, and to go to the medical professionals, and to do everything to make sure that that a small injury doesn't grow for a big one, and they don't if they have a hamstring strain, the next thing will be lower abdominal pain and pubitis and everything. So people need to take care of themselves. Like I always tell them, do you take your car for a checkup every whatever 10,000 kilometers? So take yourself and make sure that you take care of yourself as you take care of your car.
Amazing, isn't it? Isn't it great how both pro and amateur smashed together, because amateur is where it starts, pro where it has to be prolonged. And it's what you put in your body, how you manage your body, and how you take care of yourself. Really, really interesting. And this has been really cool to speak to you guys. And I'll throw it back to my good-looking co-host, Daniel Smadge, who clearly looks like a runner who takes care of himself. Me, I'll be limping, but Smadge, I know you probably run and take care of your body better than me, probably.
I run a lot, but after speaking with Dalit, I might be running a little bit less now.
Oh my! But what will doctors like Ran have to do then?
No, I like the weekend warriors better than the runners.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah,
It's me.
Ran, I'll be seeing you in a few years. Unfortunately, I think my knees are shot.
So you need to take care of it before. You need to take, there we have injections now. We can implant meniscus. We have a lot of things, new things that maybe you can read about them on the web. But there are a lot of new things that coming now, and they can protect your knees and don't push you to do the knee replacement in the age of 50 or 60.
Just before we let you go, you just mentioned new things, technology. How important is technology to amateur athlete, professional athletes? I'm talking from, you mentioned injections, but even the proper running shoes or the proper, equipment. What should athletes do? Where's the first place they start to make sure that this doesn't happen to them?
So I think that most of the shoes now are getting, better and better. Like years ago, you knew that there only one brand that is good enough for running, and the others were terrible. But now I think the running shoes are whatever comfortable you feel comfortable with. If you have problems, if you have foot, problems, maybe you need soles, or maybe you need like that, maybe orthotics and those stuff. If you're riding a bicycle, you need someone to fix them, to measure your height, your length, and everything, and put the bicycles in the right position for you. This will reduce the injuries that you might have. So this is the first thing. And then we have a lot of technologies. We have GPS now. Every player is connected to GPS. We know if they have problems of running. We know if they have difference between the legs. We know everything about everyone. During the game, someone is running, rushing for the ball, and our trainer said, "Oh, he ran 33 kilometers for an hour now." So on the spot, he knew what is doing. We know during the game, we know each one how many miles he ran, how many sprints he did, what was the average speed of them, and in hockey, collisions, everything. So now it's getting better and better. The technology is doing its job for us, but in the end, we are human, and human is not mathematics. It's always something from the mind. And here's the lead.
I wish I had I wish we had technology like that when I was playing football. My back, I sit here right now, my back is hurting. So it's just, I'm hoping for the best, just working out and doing those things. By the way, really good.
So Dalit, end the show with some wise advice from the psychologist's point of view for our amateur athletes, our recreational athletes.
My best advice is find the type of exercise that you love. And if you want to stick with it for a long time, find yourself a team or a teammate to work out with.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Dalit, Ran, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much to the Sylvan Adams Sports Institute and the Tel Aviv University for organizing this for us. It's been fantastic. Laila Tov in Israel, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
you.